I want to show you something a bit different because today I'm going to open up basically every financial account I have. My trading 2-in-2 investments, my dividend stocks for passive income, my self-invested pension on InvestEngine, my cryptocurrency on Coinbase, my LISA house deposit, and even my cash ISA. And I'll walk you through exactly how all of these pieces fit together into one plan. My plan to financially retire early here in the UK. I'm 34, I'm not a millionaire, I work a normal day job and I don't have a trust fund or a property empire. But I've kept some good financial habits and now I've built some things we can talk about. But I'm not there yet. In fact, I've got a ways to go. So if you're somewhere in your 30s or any age and you're thinking, I don't want to be working until I'm 67, then this video might be the most useful one I've ever made. Let's get into it. So how do you retire early? Well, it's actually really simple. You need to have more money coming in than your expenses. It's simple, but it's not easy. Otherwise, everyone would do it. And the way AI is going, we might need to. I have 5 areas that I'm going to be focusing on in the next few years to reach that point, and I'll show you how each piece is going to fit into the overall puzzle of retiring early. Now, before we begin, remember that I'm not a financial advisor and this is not financial advice. I'm just sharing my journey and my thoughts, and everyone's situation is different, so be sure to speak to a financial professional before making any decisions. Let's start with my investment portfolio, and I'll end with showing you how close I am by percentage to reaching that goal. Now, my investments are a huge part in all of this because, to be honest, there are only 2 real ways to financially retire. And one of those is not to save a huge amount of money and draw down on it until it's zero. Simply because it's not sustainable and you don't want to run out of money before you run out of time. Nothing is certain in life, but 2 methods I quite like are to build enough passive income that it covers your expenses, which we'll talk about, and the second is to use the Bengen rule, which suggests that if you have a well-invested portfolio, you can safely withdraw 4% a year as your income, and the growth of your portfolio should replenish this in a sustainable way. So, I try to cover both of those aspects in different ways. This is my dividend portfolio that I have on Trading 2-in-2. This part of my portfolio is roughly £15,500. Through many hours of research, I've built up a set of companies I'm happy with for the long term and that pay me around £770 in passive income every year. And over the years, these stocks should grow and compound, and because it's in stocks and shares ISA, it means we don't pay tax on the dividends. So while dividends aren't always guaranteed, the more I build up my passive income, the more bills this covers, and it gets me closer to my goal. So as the years go by, I plan to never sell these stocks, reinvest the dividends, and keep buying and adding to the portfolio, and through my contributions and compound growth, this will bring me closer and closer to my goal. So that's what I'm doing to increase my passive income. And by the way, if you're enjoying this, please remember to leave a like on the video. Now, let's talk about my growth stocks and the 4% rule, and then we'll get into my other accounts as well. So, the Bengen rule, or the 4% rule, was created by the financial planner William Bengen, and it says that a retiree can safely withdraw 4% of their initial portfolio value in the first year, then adjust that amount for inflation annually with a high probability of not running out of money over 30 years. Put it this way. The S&P 500 grows by an average of 7 to 8% a year adjusted for inflation. So if you withdraw 4%, this could in theory be sustainable forever. That's why I have the S&P 500, the FTSE All-World ETF, as well as a couple of higher risk assets like the China Large Cap ETF and Bitcoin. Right now, I have about £4,000 between these, and I'll keep buying, growing, and compounding these assets over the long term. The larger I grow these funds, the more that 4% withdrawal will be worth when I want to use it. As part of this, I also have my £1 a day experiment. This Trading 2-in-2 feature allows me to invest £1 a day into the Vanguard All-World ETF every single day automatically, and by my maths and the average rate of return of the fund and the compound growth over the next few decades, this could reach £1 million by the time I reach retirement age. I have 2 full videos on this playlist here that I'll link below if you want to check it out. I've been doing this for nearly a year and it adds another £370 to the total, and maybe or maybe not £1 million one day. So that's a total portfolio of £16,400, which is an estimated income using both those methods of nearly £1,000 a year. Next, let's talk about a really important investing tool I use, which is the SIPP, or Self-Invested Personal Pension, that I have with InvestEngine. And the reason I opened one of these this year was because of the massive tax relief that you get. Because whatever you deposit in a SIPP, you get at least an additional 25% extra given to you by HMRC and up to 45% for additional rate taxpayers. So to make that simple, for every £100 you deposit into a SIPP, you get an extra £25 deposited for free. Now, you can only access these funds at 57, but many of the ETFs I hold I plan to keep for the rest of my life. It just means there will be a larger amount I can access later, and I can build that into my financial timeline. So since starting this a few months ago, I have £623 that I hold in the Invesco All World ETF, and I'm waiting on another £58 from HMRC for some recent deposits. But with a 25% tax relief on all deposits, it's genuinely one of the best compounding wealth building tools you can find, and I have a whole video on it to learn more. If you want to set up your own SIPP, we have a link in the description where if you sign up with InvestEngine and deposit £100 or more, you'll receive a free bonus of between £20 and £200, and you can also add that to your SIPP as well. So it's a bonus on a bonus if you use the link. Then last of my investments is a small allocation to Bitcoin on Coinbase. I made a recent video about how I'll be investing more here this year because right now my investment in Bitcoin is £150 and I want to bring that to £800 or 5% of my portfolio, which I'm comfortable with for a riskier asset. But this investment is the same idea. Hopefully it grows over time and I can use that holding to draw 4% from, like a manual dividend, towards my income. But for now, it's small and I want to invest more and grow this holding as part of a diversified portfolio. Now, I just want to stop here for a second to mention that on top of everything we're seeing, I do also have my normal pensions and personal savings and all of that. But I would say that those are for a normal life timeline and to make sure I'm comfortable and able to retire in a normal way like most people will have. So what I'm going through here are just the tools I'm using to either boost that retirement, make it sooner than normal, or to financially retire altogether. So on that note, I started a new cash ISA this month on Trading 212 because I realized in the last year that personal savings can fluctuate a lot, and I noticed it especially with our wedding, which many of you will know is always more than you expect, and we've also been doing a lot of traveling the last 2 years, which is part of what we want to do in life. So my plan is to have a separate savings account, one that never gets touched, and we're going to use to slowly build up the cash position to between 3 to 6 months of income and use it as a cash moat, a protective layer for life and my investments that's always there and protects against any large unforeseen events. And once it reaches that point, I can just withdraw the interest as an extra income. This month I deposited £50 here, and it will be a longer road to reach that 3 to 6 month income while I'm still investing in these other areas. Now, on top of all of these so far, I have been in the process of buying our last and largest asset, a house. And that's very important because it plays a big part in all of this plan. Because yes, it creates debt and a liability, but let me tell you why it makes sense to me. The very first thing is that when you rent, you have to rent forever. When you buy, eventually you can pay it off and not have to pay a mortgage. The second thing is that typically rent will go up each year with inflation. With a mortgage, it stays the same, but your salary increases with inflation, so each year, your home payment goes down relative to your salary and relative to your expenses. Now, there can be changes in interest rates, but in the long term, you end up paying much less each year and eventually zero when it's paid off. Plus, you can also choose to increase your payments each year with your income to pay it off sooner. Now, when we talk about financial retirement, probably your biggest cost is your housing. So if you can bring that down relative to your income or to pay it off entirely, that could make the single biggest difference to your financial plans. And lastly, of course, in theory, the values of property should rise over the long term and you are paying towards an asset rather than rental, which goes into someone else's pocket. So for the last year, we've been contributing to our LISA for the deposit of our first home because you also get an extra 25% on all deposits for now. And last tax year, we were able to max it out at £4,000 and receive the £1,000 top up. This year, I'll aim to add £333 a month to max it out again this year until we're ready to buy. I'm using Moneybox as my LISA platform, and it's currently got £5,373 with a bit of interest in there as well. The last thing is this YouTube channel, which of course brings in a bit of income, but nothing huge, and whatever comes in from it I'll typically use to buy new equipment or software, or to invest it as part of the overall goal that I want to reach. So, how close am I, and what do I still need to do? Well, in terms of assets I've allocated to my Retire Early fund, I have a total of £21,800 between investments, SIPP, LISA, and my cash moat. For passive income right now, taking into account my dividend income, 4% withdrawal of growth ETFs, and cash interest I'm earning right now, this would come to £1,276.53 a year. Like I said, I'm reinvesting all this at the moment, but that's in theory what I could pull from it to cover my expenses right now. So if we take the average income in the UK as £39,000, that means I would in theory be 3.2% towards reaching early retirement. Now, if I were to take my pension, personal savings, and YouTube into account, this would definitely change that number. But from my Retire Early fund, I've got some ways to go, and I've got a plan of how I'm going to get there. You've got to start somewhere, and if you never start, you'll never finish. If you're interested in either my journey or this journey for yourself, this video will be a series under this playlist here, and I'll update it a few times a year to see what I've put away, where I've invested, what's grown, and to update you on the percentage as I go along until I reach 100%. So subscribe if you want to see that, and please drop me a comment if there's anything you think I'm doing wrong or can be doing better. I'd love to get your feedback. I've got a couple of affiliate links below that you can use to help on your own journey, like InvestEngine, when you can deposit £100 and get a bonus from £20 up to £200. But that is it for today's video, and I'll see you next Wednesday, as always, on Casual Cash. Cheers.